Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday, the first real Football Friday. Johnny Mack of the 2024 NFL season. Good to be here with you, John McMullen. Good to be here with all of our viewers, all of our listeners on the podcast, wherever you're consuming the content. We appreciate you for consuming it. Make sure you drop a like, show your support of the channel and of the show. We appreciate that. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Friday morning, man?
Doing well, yeah. First respite, Eagles having a walkthrough today, so they will be at work, but no reporters in for walkthroughs. So first little breather, not a full practice today, and then they'll be back at it tomorrow morning, where Kellen Moore will speak for the first time. So I put a moratorium on motion. There's probably going to be a crap load of motion questions on Saturday morning, so we can leave it to then.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, Kellen Moore, he'll get his first shot at 9:40 in the morning, Saturday morning.
That'll be just the second time we'll hear from Kellen, right? You guys had one presser with him already.
Yeah. Second, we talked to him in the spring. It's sort of the introductory, which was way too late, but I digress. And
Eagles do not care, man. They are just
they do not care. Same thing with Vic. I mean, Vic, as you saw yesterday, Vic's a former head coach in this league. He has no problem dealing with press, although, maybe the Eagles see some problems because he's a little bit too honest. But and Kellen's the same way. He's been doing this, not been a head coach, but he's been a coordinator for a long time now. So I don't know why they take so long, but probably because they can. That's why.
Yeah, I think if they look at some of the stuff that comes out of the pressers and they're like, let's avoid them at all costs for as long as we can and for as much as we can. And that's what they do. But Johnny Mack, we got a good show planned today. We'll have Paul Domlich, Hall of Fame selector, going to be covering the Eagles for a long time. We'll get his perspective on what he's seen come out of camp for the first couple of days. And then in hour number 2, Ed Kratz, who's been down there at training camp, obviously, with you for the first 2 days. So good stuff. We'll get ready to talk to Ed in hour number 2. So good show planned. John, I want to get your general feel, your general consensus 2 days in. We talked about all this stuff all off season long, the wide receiver 3, the position battles, the linebackers, the cornerbacks, you name it. We talked about it all off season long. How you feeling, Johnny Mack, after the first 2 days? What have you seen from this team that has stood out to you after 2 days of practice? I know it's not much, but some things have to have changed a little bit. What is it, and what have you seen?
Well, I think what has changed is you see what's really competition. And what's really competition is cornerback, linebacker, off-ball linebacker. We don't know yet with right guard because of the injuries. Landon's been out with the lacerated toe. He's back limited, but he hasn't worked in team drills. So that kind of has a domino effect. It affects Mekhi Becton. Instead of being on the second team, he's the first team left guard. It affects Matt Hennessy, who would be potentially involved in some competition as well because he's now the backup center. He had been the backup right guard back in the spring. So you have a little bit of a domino effect, and we'll get a better indication if that's going to be more of a real competition when Landon gets back into practice and everything falls back into place. And even Brett Toth, who's been the backup center as well, he's been out with a hamstring issue. And that has affected that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say it's not going to be a competition, but we certainly haven't seen it yet. It's been all Tyler Steen. And I think ultimately we'll get a better feel for Tyler Steen when the pads come on, as people have been talking pretty consistently with that. And he's going to have some difficult times, certainly with Jalen Carter opposite him. So there's going to be some hiccups and ups and downs, and we'll see if that competition develops. I've talked about tight end, the backup tight end or starting tight end if you're going to use 12 personnel.
Right.
The second tight end spot has been not a competition. It's been all Grant Calcaterra. That, I wrote about that on Sports Illustrated. That might have been my biggest surprise.
Which is significant because coming into camp, we were leaning CJ Uzama on that position.
Yeah. For a number of reasons. One, he's a veteran player. He's played at a high level. He's played deep into the playoffs with Cincinnati. He's been successful. But he's coming off an injury, and he's older. I also like the fit because if CJ's your second tight end, then you could play him. He's a big guy. He's a better blocker than receiver, but he's a competent receiver, and that means you can play Dallas Goedert more as a flex receiver, which I think is a positive. And then all of a sudden, if you can play Dallas Goedert as a flex receiver, you have less of a need to find that third receiver and all these things. And now with Grant, it's the opposite. You almost have to play Dallas Goedert's in line more because Dallas is a good blocker. Grant is not known for that. And then it becomes, are you tipping off, other teams? Do you get too predictable? That was a big word last year with your tendencies, because what's going to be done when a certain grouping is on the field. You have to be very careful and cognizant of that. And they want, Grant to be a better blocker, and we'll see if he can handle it. But right now, it's his job to lose. So that's kind of
that's a little bit of Kellen Moore effect, John, just because, Kellen likes to spread the ball around. Maybe he prefers to have a guy that can, is more able to make run routes or whatever he might have him do. And, Kellen can get creative with those guys. Do you think that's part of why they're using Grant Calcaterra?
Maybe, but Nick's loved him before Kellen's ever gotten here. Nick constantly talks about him. So I think it's maybe a combination of both. And he's had 9 receptions over his first 2 seasons. So there wasn't a lot of, clearly Nick likes what he does behind the scenes, practice walkthroughs, things like that. Because it hasn't really shown up on game day, but I think it's a combination of both guys, but Kellen does have a history of using tight ends well, certainly in Dallas, and multiple tight ends well. Wide receiver 3, Paris Campbell, I thought had a really good first day, and all of a sudden, they want to look at John Ross a little bit more. So that seems to be a legitimate competition. And there's good and bad to that. One, you don't want to just hand things to Paris Campbell, but I would have also liked to have seen, well, can he be consistent? He had a good day. Can he have another good day? It's a little bit limited if you're not out there with the starting quarterback and you're getting more reps with Kenny Pickett. So there's good and bad to these competitions. And it's tougher to stand out when you're with the second team, obviously, than with the first team when you got all the all-stars out there. We won't call them Dream Team, but we'll call them all-stars.
John, how much of it do you think is, we're only 2 days in, so it's tough to really get like a feel, but how much, when you see, just for example, going back to the wide receiver 3, as we're talking about right now, do you think they're giving John Ross a fair shake just because it's early in camp and they're like, let's look at everybody? Or do you think they're honestly like, we don't know how much better Paris is? Or is it just like, let's see everybody and then we'll move into, who we think is a
starter? Well, I think it's between those two guys. They can, I think there was some cross fingers that Anaya Smith or Johnny Wilson could, jump up and be contributors. And hey, Puka Nacua,
them, right?
No, not good anyway. Johnny short-armed one yesterday, and that was from Tanner McKee. So, that's third team work. And Ice is ahead. They're trying to, sort of pigeonhole him and get him some second team snaps. And he's a 5th rounder. Johnny's a 6th rounder, so that makes sense. But and everybody points to Puka like that's normal. Well, he was a 5th round pick. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, good luck with that.
That's
So,
the exception, everybody.
yeah. So yeah, I maybe it becomes more relevant, but and John Ross is enticing because of his physical skills. Same thing we've talked about with Devin White and
Yeah.
Saquon, but same reason, top 10 pick. He's got the physical gifts. Things went wrong from an injury perspective, but he's still young. And, throw the dart and see if it hits. He's certainly got the gifts to play. But it never manifested itself in Cincinnati. But I don't have a problem with them giving him a chance. I get it, especially when you don't have a proven commodity at wide receiver 3. So it's understandable why they want to look at him because of the physical traits.
Yeah, so we'll see how that position shakes out. I wouldn't rule out, the potential that Howie would go outside the organization.
Oh yeah, he pretty much said that.
Yeah.
He went all Vic for about 10 seconds and said, but I love him, but we'll be looking at that daily. So yeah, they'll be looking at it daily and seeing what jumps off the page, or if guys are not as impressive, because remember, it's about more than just being the third receiver. You also have to back up AJ and Devontae if something,
right,
God forbid, happens to them. So that's the issue they're dealing with at that third wide receiver spot.
Yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. I kind of like it, John. Maybe Vic Fangio is having a bigger effect on this team. We're getting a lot of honesty out of these press conferences from Jalen and from Howie and from
just
everybody.
small snippets from Howie and Nick.
Snippets, but hey, better than no snippets, so we'll take it. As Johnny Mac mentioned at the top of the show, everybody, Eagles have a walkthrough today, so no media availability. You will not see any videos, nothing coming out of camp today. They will be back on the practice field tomorrow morning. Kellen Moore will speak tomorrow morning, so Johnny Mac will be down there for that. And we will probably do a shorter show maybe tomorrow, just a quick 30 when John's back, and just recap day 3. So that's coming up tomorrow. And then, John, what's the schedule for the rest of the weekend? Off Sunday. I know the players are off.
Yeah, players are off Sunday, back on the field Monday at 10 a.m. Nick will speak before practice, Tuesday practice. So back-to-back practices. Michael Clay will get his first chance crack at the podium this year on Tuesday. Then Wednesday is a walkthrough. No scheduled media availability there. And Thursday, August 1st is the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field. So fans can obviously attend that practice. I think it's about $10 that goes to the Eagles Autism Foundation, but so it's a good cause.
Yeah,
and that's nighttime practice. It begins at 6:30, and then Friday they're off. Saturday off, and then back at it Sunday, August 4th. So, yeah, it's not like the old days. And this is a ramped up Eagles training camp.
Yeah, it's kind of like this across the league, though, right? It's not just Philly here. We're talking.
Well, the Eagles are at the low end. They are. They're like bottom. And Nick spoke about that when we talked about the snippets of honesty. He said we're always going to be at the low end.
Right. It's their organizational philosophy as it's worded. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're going way out, Sunday, August 4th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, practice. That's your dog days of summer. Sunday, August 4th through Wednesday, August 7th. The Eagles will be on the practice field every day.
So bear with us, Birds 365 fans. We're going to have a changing schedule for the next couple of weeks, obviously, with everything going on at training camp. And, John's working very hard getting down there for NovaCare. So we appreciate his contributions, and we're going to make it happen on 2 hours a day, whether John's here for the full of it or not. But just stay tuned. We will continue to update you on our schedule. Johnny Mac, Monday, I know they have the morning practice, but just so everybody knows, we are going to do Birds 365 in the morning. I don't think you'll be there for the full thing, but we'll do Birds 365 in the morning just because I know you have something in the evening on Monday. So I hope you have a good time at that. But we cannot do a night show on Monday. So we will be here Monday morning on Birds 365. I'll probably get Johnny Mac for as much as I can, 30, 40 minutes. And then I'll bring up Jeff Kerr, our Monday guy, and I'll talk to Jeff maybe I'll keep Jeff for an hour if he's available, and we'll close out the show from there. So Monday morning, everybody, we will be back on Birds 365 in the morning. I appreciate everybody being here. Johnny Mac, anything else stand out at camp really maybe let's go defensive side. We talked a little bit about wide receiver 3 and the right guard position. Anything sticking out on defense?
Just a competition, but then they're really rotating guys and really trying to figure out the best ways forward at both outside corner and nickel. And I've said, I'm Team Q, as our buddy James Carver says. So they've thrown a lot at him. He's played every position, and all of a sudden he might be involved in the slot competition. Now that Cooper DeJean has had a little bit of a setback, and he's going to be pushed back a little bit, supposed to miss about 3 weeks. So we'll see how that works with Cooper. And, very difficult test, September 6th, right off the bat, Green Bay in Brazil. Sure. Jordan Love, explosive offense. Matt LaFleur, they were really cooking at the end of last season. They got a ton of young, effective receivers, athletic guys. So it's going to be a big test and interesting. And the linebackers, they've been rotating everybody. Ben Van Sumeren has gotten first-team reps. Jeremiah Trotter got a couple first-team reps before he went down with some cramps yesterday. Very humid day, 2 back-to-back humid days. The one constant has been Devin White, so you certainly say he's probably going to be one of the two. And then I still think Nakobe Dean's the leader for that second spot, but they're giving everybody a look. And as Vic kind of showed, and Damo's going to be up. I see him popped in the green room. Damo's been aware of Vic Fangio since 1984, I think. He can correct me if I'm wrong. He's going to do what he wants. So if he thinks somebody can play, he's going to play him.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. Vic Fangio spoke yesterday. For anybody that missed that was refreshing to say the least. He was very honest, maybe sometimes honest to a fault in terms of how the organization might have felt about it. But it was great to hear the honesty from defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Kellen Moore is coming up to speak tomorrow. So we will follow along and we'll keep you updated with that. Let's get to our first commercial break. As Johnny Mac mentioned, Hall of Fame selector Paul Domowitch set to join us next. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Cody K, what's up, man? Bruce Banner, Eduardo, Twiz the Jigga, Joho, Madness, Daz, Eduardo. Anybody I missed? Sorry I missed you, but we appreciate you being here. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show. Stay tuned. Birds 365 will be right back with Paul Domowitch.
If you missed any of today's show on the Jacob Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow, to get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody. A Football Friday edition of Birds 365, the first real Football Friday of the NFL season. Eagles back on the practice field, back for training camp this week. Paul Domowitch joining us now on Birds 365. Domo, how you doing this morning, man?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, Damo. We got to see, I talked a little bit about Vic. You saw, you may have heard in the opening, and you've known about Vic for as long as anybody in this town. Boy, he's a breath of fresh air, man. He just says what he wants and doesn't care. And, you know, it's phenomenal to this point.
He's Jim Johnson, too, when it comes to press conferences.
Yeah. You know, Bryce Hopp, he was like, no, he's not ready now. And I think people took that the wrong way. Certainly expects him to be ready by September 6th.
Yeah.
Analytics stuff was tremendous, which I thought was interesting. Vic doesn't even share his thoughts with his disciples, which I wonder if he shares them with Nick and Howie. I could see that being a problem. But
I loved his answer to somebody asked him about swagger.
Yeah, he's like,
oh, that was great.
I love it. I love it. He's like,
great.
He's got no time for the bullshit, Damo. Basically, that's what he's like. He's like, stop with that. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Yeah. Because everybody makes these things about swagger and, you know, can you play? Can you not play? That's pretty much Vic Fangio's world.
Yep.
And I think it's a good world to be in. And yeah. I can't say enough. I think more coordinators, head coaches should be that way, but I understand why they're not, because people take these things off in directions. Like if you read the transcript, he didn't say anything bad about Bryce Huff, but a lot of people took it that way, Tomo.
Yeah. And I mean, he was asked about competition. Now imagine what every defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator the Eagles have had over recent years would have answered that with some non-answer.
Yeah.
There's competition at every spot. And he basically said inside linebacker and quarterback.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. And it shows on the field because he's rotating guys in and out. And look, it's understandable. A corner, I think you got a bunch of guys who I think can play, and you're just trying to figure out the best collaborative grouping. Linebacker, it's about finding guys who can play. And he said something about Nakobe, too, that a lot of people took the wrong way. And that's, you know, he's proven it at the college level, which is true. I mean, he hasn't done much at the NFL level, but I think there's hope, and certainly that he's going to ultimately lock down that second position, and we'll see how it goes. But defensively, it's going to be interesting in the fact that they've kind of slowed down. I think the spring was they were making plays all over the place, and I'm not sure if that was Kellen Moore sort of trying to get Jalen Hurts better at what he is not great at, throwing the football over the middle of the field, short stuff, forcing him sort of like a spring training pitcher. I made that analogy, forcing him to try some different things. And they haven't done as much as that. And all of a sudden, the Eagles offense looks pretty sharp again. So your takes sort of from that start from both sides of the football.
Well, I mean, Jalen is going to have to adjust this year because, teams are going to take away exactly what they took away in the spring. I mean, they're going to make him do things he doesn't want, that aren't in his highest comfort zone. We've talked about this in the past. That includes throwing to his backs. He's going to have to do it because they're going to dare him to. And, you want it. The bottom line is with a passing game is you want to get the ball to people in space. And he's going to have a lot of people in space. So he needs to recognize it quickly after the snap and get it to them. I think we're going to see that ball out quicker this year with Kellen Moore's offense. And, I think that's going to be a good thing for him because he's not going to take as many hits. I saw, I guess, the other day in practice, granted, this is non-contact, but, he had Barkley open sometimes on, to drop it off to, and he was hanging on to it and took sacks in the first practice. That's what he needs to learn not to do. So we'll see how it goes.
Damo, how do you walk that fine line of getting Jalen to do some of those things and, getting the ball out quicker, taking dump off to the running back, but also not changing the type of quarterback he is? Obviously, he possesses that big play ability at, when the play breaks down where he can kind of get outside and create something out of nothing. How do you walk that line as a coordinator coming in with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts?
Well, he's a smart guy, so I think he knows what he needs to do. It's just a matter of doing it when it's live. Good coaches convince their players what's best for them, what's best for the offense, what's best for the defense.
Right.
And I think that's what eventually Kellen Moore needs to do with Jalen. And again, like I said, I don't think Jalen needs a lot of convincing. If the last 7 games did nothing else last year, they should have convinced him what the defenses, knew what they were doing and could take away whatever they wanted to. Right. A.J. Brown had no touchdowns in the last 7 games. So they took him away. He knows that now. He knows he's got to go someplace else to make them respect that and get A.J. Brown open for the plays he wants to get the ball to him on. So we'll see. But I'm fairly confident that he's going to learn that, and that we'll see that once we get to September 7th.
I forgot to mention when we're talking about Big Damo, I asked him about James Bradbury as well. I was thinking
my favorite one, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson and Ronnie Lott was a cornerback, and I said guys have done it, and he shut me down. He said, well, yeah, but not many. And he's right. So I give Vic the check mark there for correcting me. But at the end, he said, oh, and he'll play some cornerback for us. And that's always been my concern with Howie kicking the can down the road on James Bradbury. If Vic gets him and he's got him and he sees, wow, this guy knows how to play, especially with all these complicated zone coverages, and some of the young guys are having difficulty picking up some of this stuff, all of a sudden you're playing James Bradbury. And I don't think the Eagles want to play James Bradbury.
Yeah.
Is that a danger?
Vic's going to play the best guys. He does. You're right. He doesn't care what Howie thinks. Howie knows that. They brought him in here. They know what they're getting. And he wants him to play the best guys. I just don't think James Bradbury is going to be one of the best guys. So I don't think that's a concern. I mean, I think unless everybody, starts getting hamstrings and torn Achilles, there's just no way I see this guy being on the.
I always thought he was a perfect fit for a Fangio defense, and you saw it in 2022. I mean, he was a second team All-Pro because he's such a savvy player. He's never been about speed to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think last year things went awry. By the way, Jordan Mailata had a great quote. He's sick of last year. Brookie, our buddy, is on the beat of what happened last year. And I think he's trying to get blood from a stone at this point. And I think the Eagles have kind of signaled what it was and coordinators and what they think, and then conditioning. Conditioning's been a big part of camp so far. And I think, maybe this laissez-faire approach, so to speak, didn't work out as well last year.
Yeah.
But from the larger standpoint of what happened last year, can you just turn the page? I think you can. I mean, sometimes you just chalk it up to things went awry. I mean, you've changed coordinators, you change what more can you do than try to fix it, I guess.
Flush it, as Hertz used to say.
Yeah, flush it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. You've got new coordinators, so that helps convince the players that things are going to be different. They played pretty well for 11 games last year. So I'm sure that they're not showing a lot of film of those last 7 games lately when they look back. I don't think it'll be a problem. It looks like a lot of guys that they needed to, like Jordan Davis seems to be a different player. Those things seem to be a plus for them. So,
yeah. And we'll see because they still, and Nick admitted, Tomo, they're still at the low end of the league when it comes to practice time and things like that, even though they acquiesced to Vic and Kellen Moore a little bit and given them a little bit more practice time on the schedule, but it's not much. It's the same as it's been. That's an organizational philosophy. I kind of agreed with it from the standpoint of, well, you can't prepare like you could in the old days anyway. So you might as well get to week 1 as healthy as possible. Like, I think that's their cost benefit analysis, which I kind of agree with.
Yeah.
But the conditioning part is an issue, if that was an issue. And I think it was an issue last year.
Yeah. I mean, he mentioned that, I think he was talking about installing the defense and whether they are still installing it. And he said, back in the old days, you could do it slowly in training camp because you had such a long camp. And, now it's different. I mean, they installed some in the spring and now they're cramming some more down their throats.
Yeah.
I expect that as well. He's like, now you got to go. You gotta go.
Yeah. It's got to be tough. I mean, these are not this isn't like a grade school offense and defense here. These are tough to, and you got very limited time to install this stuff.
Yeah. Vic is not going to, he's not going to rotate his defensive tackles like they did last year. I mean, so these guys need to be in shape. I think it's been made clear to all of them, you better, when you get here for camp, I mean, they saw him in the spring, Grant. Obviously, it's not like the old days when, the season's over and, we'll see in July. But, I mean, they know what they're in for. They know they're going down to Brazil in the first weeks. All these guys, if anybody doesn't know they have to be in shape, they shouldn't be on the field.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Dom, I want to ask you about Cooper DeJean. He was the one unfortunate news of the week for the Eagles. I thought overall they had a pretty good week. I thought they handled some of the controversies of the offseason, put them to bed pretty quick. This was the one story I thought that was unfortunate. What do you make of a guy? I mean, I'd make of a lot of I'm concerned on it, Damo, because he's a rookie. He's never been through this before. This is such a big ramp-up period with a new coordinator, as we just talked about, installing all these new things. How far behind is Cooper DeJean going to be starting missing these first couple weeks of training camp?
Yeah. What's his injury again?
Hamstring.
Hammy.
He's looking at 3 weeks, then about 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are ones that could linger too. Not saying it's gonna, but it could.
Well, with bass guys, that's why they're being cautious, because you don't want it to aggravate and that kind of thing.
I mean, the good part is he's going to be he's going to be watching the install. He's going to be in the meeting room. So it's not like he's left and went back to Iowa and will come back in 3 weeks. So
it's funny though. But when you're not on the field, people forget about you all real quickly. And all of a sudden, Quignon's taking slot reps, and they're like, "Oh, we better try something else."
Yeah,
it's like it's 3 weeks. The guy's going to be back.
Yeah,
I don't know. The hope was you can get him out there week 1. I think from a lot of people, that's probably not going to happen. But it's not the worst thing in the world if it's week 3 or week 4 for a rookie player.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting they're trying so hard to find a replacement for Avonte. I'm not sure what to make of that. Is it obviously I understand why you want the contingency after what went down last year, but he can play when he's on the field. Now he's never on the field, and you got to cross your fingers. But I'm saying if he's on the field, if he's healthy, I have no problem playing Avonte Maddox. Do you?
There's no question. I don't think there's any question with them. It's just that you can't trust him to be on the field. I mean, it's the old saying about you can't make the club in the tub. I mean, the guy's been hurt. How many games has he missed over the last 3 years?
Oh yeah. And part of it is the way he plays, because he's such a small guy and he's so physical, and that's why he's a good slot. It's the run support stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is here is that, I mean, they're making contingency plans there. The guy, you look on the other side of the ball. I mean, we're talking about a guy like Barkley. You're holding your breath as well. I mean, the mileage, the on his legs, the injury history, the ankle injuries, the ACL. I mean, same situation there, and they have contingency plans there. They've got Gainwell, they've got the kid they drafted from Clemson. So, that's the name. I mean, that's basically the name of the game in the NFL. People are going to get hurt one way or another, whether they have an injury history or not. And you damn well better have a backup that's ready to step up and be the next man in.
Yeah, it's the corners are going down this year. Darian Kendrick out in Los Angeles tore his ACL. Mekhi Blackman tore his ACL, Minnesota. Already it's starting, which is a shame whenever it happens. But if somebody could ever figure out how to prevent ACLs, he's going to make a lot of money, or she. And I don't know how you do that, but man.
Right up there with a cure for cancer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think they have cured cancer at Penn, but they just won't let us have the cure. But that's my conspiracy theory. I'm serious. I read about Penn. They're like, they made all these great advancements, and we need to make some money. Don't worry about that. But I digress. I've gone down a wormhole.
Yeah, be careful with that wormhole, Johnny.
Yeah. Doctors are doing great work. That's all I'll say. But and when we talk about that corner position and making the contingency, I get. Now, when you talk about the spot opposite Darius Slay, and they're doing what they did with Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard back in the day. At least it's 2 days, so we'll see if it continues.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Rodgers was out there first. Kaylee Ringo got day 2. It'll be interesting to see day 3. But when I bring up Mitchell, what's interesting to me about him is he starts every practice. And again, it's only 2 practices, Damo. He starts the Slay's backup at left corner, and then he plays some in the slot, and then he gets some first-team reps at right corner. They are throwing the whole kitchen sink at this guy. He played dime linebacker in the spring.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful by that. They think he can handle a lot, and that makes me think he's going to be ultimately the guy, whether it's week 1, week 2, week 3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you draft him in the first round, he better be the guy.
Well, I don't mean long term, but I mean short term. I think he's going to be the guy ultimately. when you throw that much at him, I think, but we'll see.
Again, I don't think Vic's reluctant to do that. I mean, he wants to see what he can handle. And then at some point they'll make a determination whether he's handled it well enough to be the opening day starter on the other side. It wouldn't be the end of the world if he isn't. I mean, they have people, you just mentioned a few, including Rogers, that could play there. But clearly they have, they think this guy is going to be really, really good. So they want him to know everything, be able to play everywhere and get him on, keep him on the field.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it is. I think it's great to hear though, that the gene goes down and then you have Quinyon being able to float all around. That's got to be a great position for Vic Fangio to be in, right? When you have players like that can move all over the field and that are, good like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, you look at, even their previous defenses, it's all about versatility now. I mean, you want to have guys that you can move around, chess pieces that, so snap, they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know if you're in a big safety look or, a guy's playing corner or safety or linebacker. You want to confuse the quarterback. So, that's kind of the name of the game these days.
You mentioned Barkley a little bit, Damo. He was really showed up day one and the impact of day one. I'll bring Jalen into this as well because Jalen looks a lot more spry. He looks like him old self from a physical standpoint in that +1 in the running game.
Yeah.
And they seem to be running a little bit more true option with Saquon. In one play, the defense just went to Saquon and Jalen faked the pitch and took it himself, and big gainer, practice again. They don't have pads on, all that context, but I just envision the impact. If opposing teams do that, it's not even about numbers for Barkley. It's about, making things easier for the other guys.
Yeah.
That could be really impactful for the Eagles offense. But your point about the depth and the concern over his injury history, are they too redundant at running back? Kenny Gainwell does the same type of thing. They're not the same people physically, but there's the same types of backs. Will Shipley, same type of back. They don't have that big north-south runner. It's just and I've been looking for that since LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. They don't seem interested in that. They got a bunch of young guys that nobody knows, Kendall Milton, Lou Nichols, Ty Davis-Price, but nobody cares.
Nothing from Kendall Milton, Johnny Mac.
Well, a little bit, but are they going to keep him on the 53?
Yeah,
I don't. They don't have the big. They don't have Earl Campbell. They don't have a guy that's just right up the gut, and he's going to. You're not going to be able to stop him. But Barkley's a pretty good inside runner. And I think the fact that they run you got a quarter. Jalen's always you can never stack the box with Jalen, because if you do, he's going to keep it and run. So, that loosens things up for Barkley. I think, one of the problems I always had with Miles Sanders, and everybody did, he didn't want to ever take it inside.
Yeah, he wanted to bounce everything out. So,
yeah. And Gainwell's a tough runner, but he's small. He gets the most that he can when he runs it inside. They used him inside the 20, which kind of always confused me. But
well, you hit the nail on the head. People don't think he's their toughest runner, but he was.
Yeah.
Even though it was lack of size, that's why they did it. But that's my point. Why wouldn't you want somebody bigger in that type of situation who can do that?
Well, it's a passing game, and that you don't want to have a situation. Say Gainwell and Will, the kid from Clemson, couldn't catch the ball. Barkley gets hurt. You got to change your offense suddenly.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So, that's why I think they like that's why team. You look at most rosters right now. there aren't a lot of running backs that can't catch the ball, can't pass protect, because if you can't do those things, you're probably not going to get on the field, especially pass protect, which Barkley's excellent at. I mean, that's going to be a huge plus for them with him out there as far as protecting Hurts when he's not running out on patterns. So, that's why I think you don't see the big back, because you don't see the
Well, nobody's getting Earl Campbell. You remember Leroy Horde? That's who I want, Damo. Remember Leroy? He had one of the greatest quotes of all time. I think it was, on 3rd and 1, I'll get you 3. On 3rd and 4, I'll get you 3.
Yeah.
He was a great short yardage runner, though.
Well, who would you rather have right now, Barkley or Derrick Henry?
For this team, Barkley.
Yeah,
no question.
Unless you're willing to change your offense for a guy like Henry, Barkley.
I do think that's a good compliment there, though. And I don't know. I kind of like it. I get it. I get where you're going, John. I kind of like it, though, because it's the north to south guy. And we'll see how it works with them. But that's what I wanted here in Philly. So maybe I'm just biased and I'm wishing that we went that route. But
like I said, the thing with a quarterback like Hurts is it's going to allow Barkley to be be even more effective as a north-south runner than if you had a standard, pocket passer. There aren't too many of those left in the league, but where teams could just stack that box and when you got Hurts, you're widening that box.
I am interested to see that fit, because that seems like a weird fit, Derrick Henry in Baltimore. But from Baltimore's perspective, I think they're not worried. Like the Eagles want Saquon to get involved in the passing game. The Ravens don't care. They're just looking for that extra presence that makes even Lamar more of a threat in the running game, which is frightening. So it could really work out well. And that comp might be brought up a bunch, but the Eagles are looking for a different type of back. So,
well, the problem I think the biggest difference, between Jackson and Hurts and the offenses they're in, you can't do what Baltimore does with Jackson with Hurts, because he won't last. He's not as elusive. He's a fullback in a playing quarterback.
Right.
He does a good job of getting out of bounds. He does a good job of getting down, but he's going to take some hits.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson takes very few hits, even far less than even Hurts. So you can kind of let him do what he wants a lot of times, just kind of ad lib, where you really don't want to do that with Jalen.
Yeah, the tough part about Henry too is you're not really going to use him at a shotgun. At least he's not. Yeah. That's not the type of running back he is. So it definitely. I see why
they got to use him at it. It's going to be interesting to see the fit. It might be spectacular and it might be the opposite, but it is intriguing because same thing in the running game, the presence of, that type of running back with Lamar Jackson is going to create some confliction issues, to say the least, for the defense.
I'm surprised he's not in a wheelchair. He's got so much mileage, and he's still, a very effective running back. He's not as effective as he was, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
He had a good year last year. He's 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But you're right. I just pulled it up. He's got, I talk about Barkley's at 1,500, which is a concern.
Yeah.
He's at 2,100 touches.
And you got to add college,
because he was a workhorse, not just 1 year in college, multiple years. Yeah.
Same with Barkley. Barkley had I want to say 600 touches at Penn State. So
I think it was 900, Damo. 900 for
900, was it?
Yeah, at Penn State. Yep.
So you got to add that to the total, because it's not like you traded in the car when you got to the NFL.
Yeah,
for sure. He's a physical freak, though. Saquon is as well, but Derrick Henry physically is just. Yeah, you talk about Earl Campbell, because Earl Campbell, some of those runs that Earl. paid the price
Oh,
later.
Yeah. Sure did.
But he was the most, I think, and you could speak even better to this, Damo. I think he's the most physical runner of all time, Earl Campbell.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry's the closest thing we've seen to Earl Campbell, which is not Earl Campbell, but the closest thing. It's like Jim Schwartz's backhanded compliment to DK Metcalf. Well, you ain't Calvin, but you're the closest thing. That's how I kind of feel about Derrick Henry.
And with the restrictions, with them outlawing the hip roll now, and I mean that was that was one of the few ways you could get a huge man down.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting with it, how that impacts somebody like Henry or any back or any big tight end that suddenly smaller cornerbacks and safeties got to figure out how to get on the ground.
Well, let's end it there with you. You brought up tight ends at P Damo. Make sure you follow Damo on X. Does a tremendous job. Hall of Fame selector for Philadelphia, has done a tremendous job over the years with that. Nobody knows the history of this game better than Paul Domowitch. That's why I love him so much. My biggest surprise of the first 2 days of camp, Damo, they want Grant Calcaterra to be that second tight end. It's his job to lose.
Yeah,
that surprised me. You have CJ Uzomah, who's aging, but he's been a very effective player earlier in his career. Was tremendous during the Bengals' run to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And I thought I talked about fit at running back. I think Uzomah's like 265, 270. He's a good blocker. And that, to me, would enable you to play Dallas Goedert more in a flex position. And then maybe your third wide receiver issues become a little bit less.
Yeah.
Now, with this, if you're going to play Calcaterra, Dallas has got to be in line most of the time when you're playing 12. And there's a couple things with that. The tendencies, are you highlighting? Well, Dallas has got to block. I mean, Grant's not going to block anybody. Or is the hope is maybe he's turned into at least somebody who can get in the way?
Unless you play a lot of 13, then you've got, then you bring your third tight end as the blocker. You move Goddard over. My guess here is that, usually coaches kind of look at guys and see other guys, the guys they coached before. And I'm wondering here if Kellen Moore looks at Calcaterra and sees Dalton Schultz, a guy that was really good when he was with Dallas and Kellen Moore's offense, and is good now in Houston. So, I always liked Calcaterra. I just didn't know whether another concussion was going to end his career.
Yeah, that's always been my fear with him as well.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy, and you're right. I mean, all you need out of a tight. I mean, there are guys like Kittle and Dallas Goedert are rare. Guys who can actually play the position and do both catch and block. Most guys, like when Eagles all those years with Zach Ertz, all you wanted them to do was get in the way of people, and that's pretty much what you want from Grant Calcaterra now.
But I'll say this about Zach: he's a big dude. It's easier for him to get in the way. Grant's like 240. I don't know, but it was interesting to me because I didn't expect that, and he's like the guy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be a competition position, and I don't think it is going to be now. And I think, and maybe you're right, because Kellen's had a lot of history, a lot of good history with tight ends and multiple tight ends and using them well.
Yeah.
So maybe it is a flashback and he sees some traits that he likes, and we'll see how that shakes out. But P Damo, everybody, follow him on X, 33rd Team, does a tremendous job as well there, and helps us out as many Fridays as he can, which I'm always much appreciative of. Damo, hopefully we'll see you next week.
Guys, have a good weekend.
Damo, thanks for joining, man. See you. There's Paul Domowitch joining us on Birds 365. Always good talking to Damo, a guy who's been covering the league for a long time, Hall of Fame selector. Great for me to listen to when I, considering this is my first on-air training camp I'm covering. So listening to a guy like Damo, who's been doing many of them, and you, John McMullen, but Damo's been doing it for a long time. So I love getting him on. Great to talk to him. We appreciate him being here. We're going to go to a commercial break. I got two players on my mind I want to talk to John McMullen about. I think the viewers in our chat box will know what two I want to talk about with Johnny Mack. Two we've been talking about all summer long. So I'll get into them, see what we saw from them on day 1 and 2 of training camp. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Dullahan, Saquad, Slagger, Dan, James Jones, our resident Commander fan. Appreciate everybody being here. Stay tuned. Bird 365 will be right back after the break.
If you missed any of today's show on the Jacob Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Bird 365, the first official Johnny Mack Real Football Friday of the 2024 season. Eagles were back at training camp this week, reported on Monday. We're out there. Or was it Tuesday they reported? They reported on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They were out there with the media out there. So Johnny Mack was down at NovaCare, watching it all, taking it all in, and then walk through today and then back out for practice tomorrow. So our first official 2024 Football Friday. Good stuff, as we've been covering it all week long. We appreciate all the viewership, likes, comments, shares, subscribes, super chats, memberships. We appreciate it all. So thank you guys for making the channel grow. We appreciate that very much. John, two players I want to talk to you about here before we get Ed Kratz up in hour number 2 here in about 19 minutes. Let's start with the guy on defense, Devin White. Thought Devin White had some pretty good comments yesterday at his press conference. But more importantly, on field, how has Devin White looked? I know he's really been the one consistent guy in terms of getting those first team reps, no matter who's next to him, whether it's a Bond or Nakobe Dean or Van Sumeren. But what have you seen from Devin White so far in practice?
Yeah, I mean, he's been the guy, and the question is, I talk about those two positions where there's competition, and Vic, was very honest, as Damo said, and he didn't try to hide it. And he said corner and linebacker, but at corner, I think it's just trying to find out which is your best option out of a bunch of pretty good options. At linebacker, I think it's trying to figure out guys who can play and guys who can help you win. And Devin's been the one guy that he's defaulted to through all that churn. Hasn't taken every first team rep, but probably over 90%. And he's lost some weight from the spring. He's gotten in better shape. So all positive, from that standpoint. He's been tremendous carrying Saquon Barkley on wheel routes in the coverage aspect. Now, you never know if that's, is Saquon a decoy on the play and he's just sort of trying to carry him downfield to get him out of the play. There can be a lot of context to that, but he's always in his hip pocket, it seems. So that's been a positive. He's a guy you got to keep an eye on when the pads come on, from the perspective, not the physical aspect of it. Typically, when we talk about pads at linebacker, defensive line, running back, we're talking about the physicality. Like, you got to find out if Tyler Steen is physical enough to play right guard in the NFL. You don't have to worry about the physical aspect with Devin White, but you have to figure out he hasn't been good in run support. So if you're going to be the middle linebacker in this defense where they're playing gap and a half and they're going to play light boxes and they're going to play everybody else in coverage and try to get that +1 in coverage, you gotta be gap sound. And that hasn't been a strength. So that's my biggest concern with Devin White. But yeah, it looks like he's going to be the guy. And then it's a matter of who's going to be next to him. And still open-ended. I think Nakobe's still the favorite. But other guys are getting looks, even Ben Van Sumeren, even Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So everybody's getting looks. And Oren Burks is hurt right now. He's got a knee injury. He'd probably be getting opportunities as well if he were healthy. So they're looking at everybody at linebacker, everybody they have.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like Devin White does possess that athletic ability. I mean, if you're running with Saquon Barkley on the outside, you're obviously a pretty damn good athlete. So let's hope Devin White can have a good year this year. What'd you make of his press conference comments, John? A lot was talked about, the group chat he has and maybe taking on a leadership role.
Everybody loves that stuff.
Well, I don't care about the group chat, but it did kind of seem like he was talking like a leader up there, and maybe he's trying to take on that role. Maybe he's trying to turn the page and be a more mature player in the NFL. I know this is kind of a one-year prove-it deal for him, so it seems like he's kind of trying to check all the boxes and be that guy on the defense. Do you see that type of leadership role emerging for him this year?
Well, by nature, if you're going to be the middle linebacker, there's got to be some leadership aspect to it. You got to take control and get guys lined up and get the calls and all that kind of stuff. So, you're the quarterback of the defense. So there's certainly a leadership aspect to it. And yeah, I mean, he's got some cachet because of his pedigree, and that's why I can get on the text chain with Jalen and AJ. He's got some cachet with the players and his peers because of his athleticism and his freakish athletic ability. And that goes.
I'll still default back to what Fangio said, though, when talking about leadership. The best way to be a leader is to play up to your abilities.
Nobody's going to listen to you if you can't play. That's
exactly.
Another.
If Devin White plays this year, I think he's going to instantly become a leader on that defense. But if he doesn't obviously live up to it, then, it's a whole new story.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden the texts aren't getting answered.
Yeah, exactly. It's a group chat with one guy.
I'm joking. Well, two guys, but they're two pretty big guys.
No, I'm saying if he doesn't play, they're not going to be
Oh,
answering.
yeah.
Devin will be talking to himself.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of optimism. There's always a lot of optimism, but if you're being honest, it's not a great position on paper. And that's not changing because they're not going to bring in people that are going to make a difference that much. If you think about last year with Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack, who was here for a cup of coffee.
Literally.
You got to bring in people at this stage. It's not going to be difference makers. Later in the season with Shaq Leonard, who people were excited about. Shaq didn't have much left. He was a great player, but this league moves quick. Shaq Leonard's a perfect example. Shaq Leonard in his prime, was one of the 2 or 3 best linebackers in the NFL.
Yes, he was. He was dominant.
Yeah. And it's not a stasis. I say it all the time, and it moves very, very quickly. So I call it pedigree scouting. I think the Eagles did a little bit too much of it, really, the past 2 years. It didn't work out last year. We'll see if it works out a little bit better this year.
Yeah, seems to be good signs, though, so far. Obviously, can't take too much of it. No pads on yet or anything, but Devin White, certainly the number one guy in that linebacker room right now. We will see how it plays out for him. John, the other guy I want to talk about with you is on the offensive side of the ball, and that's Saquon Barkley. These are two guys we talked about extensively this offseason. A lot of fans have their sights set on both of these players to have a big year for the Eagles this year. What have you seen so far from Saquon Barkley? I know it's probably been limited, but does he look like the explosive player that Howie Roseman had mentioned, the game-changing type of player? What have you seen so far from Saquon?
Well, the fans love him. They love him.
Howie does too. It wasn't just the fans. Howie said what he said, and
well, the Eagles love him too.
Yeah, they love him.
They love him. Howie's the one who called him special and a weapon and created these massive expectations. So if it doesn't come to fruition, people will probably blame me, but they should blame Howie for these massive expectations. I haven't necessarily seen the explosion as much as the impact, as I said. I've seen the explosion from Jalen Hurts. Like Jalen Hurts looks healthy.
Yeah, that's good news.
Looks like he was 2 years ago with that +1 aspect of the running game. A lot of juice, which we didn't see last year. He had back-to-back off seasons where he had ankle surgeries. Maybe that was weighing on him a little bit more. And then as he got into the season, he hurt his knee, and then it really became obvious that he was laboring a little bit.
Right.
And you have to be concerned. Dama was talking about the hits he takes and playing the position like a fullback. And, so there's some attrition during the season. There has been for Jalen. But right now he looks back to being his explosive self. And, if teams are concerned about Saquon, and they were, again, this is one play in training camp. And when they fake the flip to him, and all of a sudden it opens up all this space for Jalen Hurts, and he exploded through it. But he can run. I mean, there's no doubt that Saquon's a great athlete. Is he the athlete he once was? No, but he's still got plenty left in the tank from the athleticism standpoint. It's funny if you talk about the two backs that are here. I think Miles is more of a home run hitter at this stage, or not at this stage for Miles, than Saquon at this stage. In other words, when Miles was here, I think he was more of a home run hitter than Saquon is now.
Got it.
Not when Saquon was in 2018. And DeAndre, I think DeAndre was a little bit overrated by Eagles fans when he was here. I think he was more, playing behind a great offensive line. If you think about where he broke out in that week 2 game against Brian Flores, they were like, all right, let DeAndre Swift beat us. And to his credit, he did. They're playing 6-man box. They're not even trying to stop it. And they got scorched. But as you see, and then the next week he had a big game in Tampa Bay, I believe it was. And then the rest of the year it was like, all right, well, we got to pay some attention to him. And it became more pedestrian, the running attack. And part of that was Jalen not being as healthy as well. So I think it's going to be much better than it was last year with Saquon in the running game. And then the passing game part of it, just to be determined. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. Is where I am with that. From the standpoint of, they're not, it's not going to be a meaningful targeted player when you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. I mean, that would be silly to me. And then for the dump-off stuff, as we talk about all the time, I'll believe it when I see it.
Any inclination on how they're going to use him in the offense? I mean, we talked a lot about the different ways you can use him in the passing game as a bell cow back. I know you probably haven't seen too much of that, but how are they going to use Saquon Barkley this year? Have your thoughts on that evolved at all after 2 days of camp?
No, from the standpoint of, they want him to be a 3-down back, so they want him to be a bell cow back. Now, I think they might start it out slowly to sort of manage it. You got to get through 17 games. So you might see more Kenny Gainwell early. And then as the season goes on, it might start being more Saquon as you get into the tougher games and must-win situations. I think, that's how they're going to do it from a pitch count. Because you do have to be cognizant, as Damo said, about how many touches he's had, the injury history. You just don't want to go out there and give him Derrick Henry level touches. I don't think that's going to end up well. So I think they're going to try to manage it a little bit, but they definitely want him to be a 3-down back when it gets really meaningful. And can they get to that stage? What is, I think, the way they're going to handle it, but I think he's going to have much more of an impact on the running game than the passing game.
Have you seen anything in the passing game though? Because that was the one thing that we did talk about, and you had, I don't want to say, we had some heated discussions about how we thought he should be used. Have you seen anything in the passing game that you liked or didn't like?
He had a good first day, and then it was more Kenny Gainwell day 2. So maybe they're working on some things.
They didn't line him up though in the slot or anything.
They did more of that in the spring. There wasn't a ton like they did it, but remember the spring's a passing camp, right? So the run game's not really involved. As Bick explained, these are the first team drills for the 2024 Eagles, real team drills when they got to training camp. The passing camp, they used them a lot, but it was mainly as a decoy. Like they would spread the field with 4 receivers, and Saquon would be in the backfield, and they would motion him out. Sorry, I would put a moratorium on motion. They motion him out as the 5th receiver, so it was an empty set. They did that multiple times, and he would just stay at the line of scrimmage and be an outlet receiver. So if something, if they're trying to get the ball to AJ and AJ's covered up, and then Jalen defaults to him, and just throws it out there and tries to get him in space, as Damo said. They did a lot of that in the spring. Haven't seen a ton of it but again, it's 2 days, and it'll be a part of it, but I think he's going to be more of a decoy than anything else when it happens to that, because the Eagles receivers are so good. The top tier guys, AJ, Devontae, Dallas, they're so good. I think he's going to be more of a decoy. Now, if one of them gets hurt, then I think he becomes more involved.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but
he better if he better, because I'll take him over Paris Campbell or John Ross. So,
I mean, you know, those guys would still be getting more traffic, but it becomes more relevant. You know, if they got to play, they're going to get traffic. That's just the way it is. So yeah, but you know, from the numbers, and I know everybody's interested in the numbers, and I'm the hater, but I had Barkley at about 13 rushing, 400 receiving, 1,700 total, and that's more than Xander Krause.
Isn't that? Don't you think that's? I mean, that's pretty damn good.
Lot. It's not. It is good, and he's a good player, and I've said that from day one. But I go back to Miles in 2022, and he was at 1269. So there's no reason to think Saquon's a little bit better.
How many receiving did Miles have?
Well, Miles was a brutal receiver.
But just for reference.
Not many. I don't have it. I can look. It's like 100 and something, because they didn't even go to him. He really was bad that season as a receiver. He had been better in the past. But if you look at last year with DeAndre and Kenny, you know, they were well over, even though people think they never threw it to the running back, and they didn't. And DeAndre was, you know, not happy with that. They combined for, I'd have to look, but over 500. So to me, you know, if he gets to 400, that's fine. That's good. And 1,700 total, that's good. And that's all you want.
With that. That's a difference-making player to me.
Well, that's more than Xander Krause and Bill Colarulo, the two Saquon Barkley truthers who think he's a superstar.
I'm not a Saquon truther. You keep putting me in that category.
I'm the hater, and I tell you the guy's going to do that. I'm just saying.
On the scale of Bill Colarulo to John McMullen, when it comes to
Bill
Saquon Barkley,
yeah,
I am closer to John McMullen than I am to Saquon or to Bill Spadaro.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't think he's a great player. Nor does he need to be on this team.
Yeah, but isn't 1,700 yards a great player? Like, you don't see good players doing 1,700 yards. I mean, that's a lot of offense, John.
Yeah. Well, it is in this era. You're right. There aren't a lot, and I'm really using the template of Miles, as I said, from 2022. And he's got to stay healthy. You got to play every game to get at those numbers.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear, is that he plays what?
Yeah, I mean, that's built in. I mean, obviously, if he's not healthy, he's not getting those numbers.
I think he plays 14, 15 games. I don't think he plays 17, but we'll see.
Yeah, you got to stay healthy. That's a big part of it, and that's a big if with him. No question about it. But with this supporting cast, yeah, I think he can get there. It doesn't, this support. Miles was not great. All right. Miles had 1,269 and he averaged over 5 yards per carry. Is he a great player? He was never a great player, but that's what he did with a great offensive line.
Right.
And a quarterback who demands a lot of attention. So I think Saquon can do similar numbers to that if he stays healthy.
Yeah, and I think I'd be pretty damn happy with those numbers, 1,700 yards, all-purpose yards. As long as he stays healthy, I've continued to say I want him to be impactful. I don't care as much about the numbers.
And that's what I've said. I've said, if people are concerned about him, even it's because of reputation or whatever, and that opens up space for AJ in the passing game and Devontae and Dallas or Jalen in the running game, instead of vice versa, that to me is far more important.
I think he's going to have a big impact on the team positively. So we'll see how it plays out with Saquon Barkley. First 2 days of camp are officially in the books. John McMullen was down there at NovaCare Complex. Ed Kratz was down there at NovaCare Complex. He will be joining us next on Birds 365. I see Ed in the green room waiting to join us on Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody. Appreciate you all being here. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Stay tuned. Ed Kratz coming up next on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the Jacob Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. First Football Fridays for the 2024 season with training camp officially underway. Joined now by Ed Kratz, who was down there this week with Johnny Mack at NovaCare. Ed Kratz, how you doing, man? Great to have you on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, Ed. I don't see you enough this time of year. I'm sure you're thrilled.
You guys are about to
see
get
me
to
as
each
well.
other real fast, real quick.
Yeah.
Good times, though. Good times.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a blank canvas here, Ed, because I don't want to pollute you with my views. What do you like? What do you dislike in the first 2 days of camp?
You have been polluting me with your views all week, John. So why change now? Well, listen, I think what's really stood out to me has been just the play of the offense. When, you go back just 2 months to the spring and, it looked like Jalen Hurts was miles away from getting a grasp of what Kellen Moore wanted him to do. We saw him throw several interceptions, I think 3 or 4. He had a couple more dropped, and, he's throwing the ball over the middle. He just didn't look real comfortable. And you thought, well, this is really going to be a long summer with him trying to figure this thing out. But the offense has come out and has looked pretty good, I think. I mean, I asked Jordan Mailata that yesterday if he thinks, it looks as crisp as it does to me. And first he said, no, there's something wrong with your eyes. And then he kind of agreed, yeah, it looks crispy, is his word. It does look crispy.
Sam Bradford Day, I called it. Ball didn't hit the ground, Ed.
Yeah,
when they were dropping it.
Hurts looks good. And listen, I think this is going to be an offense that, we saw a lot of tight end heavy usage these first couple of days. We saw a lot of motion, and man, that's really, different than what we've seen in the past. So I think Hurts is going to throw the ball more over the middle. At least that's what these first 2 days have shown me. But then you think back to last summer, and I know it was a different coaching staff, but DeAndre Swift caught like 90 passes.
That's true. Yeah.
And then the curtain went up on the season, and they didn't throw him the ball.
Yeah.
So, you hope that Kellen
Remember
Moore,
week 1, they were preparing for New England, and DeAndre Swift was working with the receivers and individual drills. And we were all like, whoa, they're going to break out some stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing. Zero.
And it never happened. I know. Yeah. So, you see what you see in summer, and you hope that it, translates into the regular season. Kellen Moore, obviously, I was told yesterday by, a really plugged in NFL source that Kellen Moore's system is really favorable to quarterbacks. If you can figure it out, quarterbacks can have big seasons in this offense that Kellen Moore designs. We saw Dak Prescott do it. Justin Herbert got hurt last year. He didn't have a full season with him in LA. But, listen, if Hurts can figure this out, if he can make the throws that Moore wants him to make, especially over the middle, that just opens up a whole another chapter of the playbook, in my opinion. So that's kind of what stood out to me on the offense. And, I think another takeaway for the defensive side of the ball, and John, you and I have talked about this, is there really hasn't been too many splash plays. And that's because the offense, I think, is just operating at a higher level. And, this is a defense that's young, that's going to take some time to mold, and that's Vic Fangio's job. So really the offense, to me, is going to have to kind of carry this team early in the year until the defense can kind of get, a little more acclimated to what Fangio wants, a little more experience with these young players. But I think I like so far on the defense, I like Devin White. I think Devin White, I asked him yesterday because to me it looked like he was heavy in the spring, and I asked him if he lost weight. And he said, yeah, he dropped a few pounds. He was in the 240s. He's trying to keep it under 240 pounds because then he can fly. And he just talks like a leader, man. I think this guy is going to be a big addition for a young defense. I think he can still play. I think last year's contract situation really distracted him. I think he was injured. And I think that, he's at a crossroads now, right? 1 year deal, $3.5 million. This is a bargain basement price for a player who I think is going to lead this defense. And that's, to me, who kind of has stood out.
That concerns me. That's never a good thing, Ed. When your leader on your defense, you bought at the Walmart clearance aisle. I don't like that. I don't like.
Well, listen, it's not like it would be the first time it happened if a bargain basement priced player comes in and shines for a team.
But if we're playing the odds game, I mean, contracts don't tell you everything, but they tell you a lot. Because there's 31 other teams out there.
Well, if you listen to White, I mean, he was friends with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts prior to coming here, and they started this group chat. So, listen, there might have been other teams in on him, or maybe there were concerns about his play, but he's 26 years old. He has friends on this team. He tried to recruit Nakobe Dean to LSU when White was at LSU and Nakobe was coming into the league. Nakobe didn't listen. He went to Georgia, had a great career, Butkus Award winner there at Georgia. But, that could be a part of it too, is he had friends in the building. He knew Brown and Hurts very well. And we maybe saw that with TJ Edwards. He went to Chicago because that's where he was from. So listen, I'm not concerned at all about the contract. I think, your play speaks a heck of a lot louder than a contract. And I think White has shown me that he can play. I mean, he's flying around sideline to sideline. He looks like he's at the right weight. He doesn't look as slow as I thought he looked in the spring. So I'm encouraged by that.
And he won the Butkus Award too. You got 2 Butkus Award winners.
Yeah. How about Zach Bond? Did he win the Butkus Award when he was
not? He did not. DJ came.
Fangio loves Zach Bond. Fangio talked up Zach Bond again on Thursday about how he likes what he brings. So
yeah, it's interesting. Vic was great. I can't say enough good things about Vic Fangio because I love honesty, and the guy is just brutally honest. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing, though, from the perspective of a lot of people just take the baton and go the way they want to go with it when people are on. Like, you read the transcript, and he didn't insult Bryce Huff, but a lot of people acted like he did.
Right.
By saying, basically, if they had to play Sunday, he's not ready. But he said he thinks he's going to be ready. He's confident he's going to be ready September 6th. Sometimes honesty isn't good and that's why coaches act the way they act, most of them. Vic, you ask him a question, be careful, because he's going to answer it.
Yeah, love it. And that's probably what rubbed some of those Miami Dolphin players the wrong way last year.
That's what I mean.
Do
you think it rubs Bryce Huff the wrong way? I mean, it's a fair question. I liked what he said. I understood what he said. I don't even think he said Bryce can't be that guy. He just said he's never done it in his career. So it's new for him. And I liked what he said, but any chance that rubs your new shiny toy you signed in the offseason wrong coming into the year?
Yeah, who cares? Listen, if it rubs in the wrong way, then take a seat. I mean, listen, it would light a fire under me if I'm a player.
That's right. That was my take.
If someone comes out and says that about me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to show the coach. I'm not going to run and hide from it.
I agree.
I'm going to attack it head on. So listen, if you're Bryce Huff and you have that kind of a thin skin, then the Eagles made a mistake in signing him to a 3-year contract. You hope it doesn't impact him. I don't think it will. He was asked about it. I thought, one of the people asking the questions was going to get hit on the head because he kept hammering Bryce Huff. Hey, you can't play 3 downs. What do you think about that? That's what Fangio said. And he kept
that was.
But yeah, listen, I think Huff will be fine. I mean, I really do. I mean, he's the guy. Fangio likes these guys that can rush and cover. And, Huff is going to do that. And if he can't do it, then we'll see who can. I mean, Jalix Hunt to me, on day one. Now I didn't see him as much on day 2, but day 1, he really stuck out to me. I think he's exactly the kind of player Fangio wants. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles took him because of Fangio, because he's got that safety background.
He does like him.
Yeah. And he looked real violent on some of his reps. On one rep with the first team, he pushed Jordan Mailata backwards with, he chopped his hands off and used a stiff arm to push Jordan Mailata backward. And I think that caught Mailata by surprise. And then he just abused Fred Johnson, the backup left tackle, on one rep too. So, this kid could be more of a role. And I wrote about it in my overreactions for SI. He could have more of a role than we think, especially because Fangio loves the kid.
I think that word. Yeah. That's great to hear from him.
I think Jordan and Lane are the same way, and they're just licking their chops until the pads come on.
Yeah.
Say, let's come,
yes.
young guy. Let's try it. Yep. Let's try it now.
Right. And we're licking our chops too, right, John? We can't wait to see the pads come on, man. That's always an exciting time when the pads come on. So I don't know what day that will be. Maybe Tuesday, I guess.
Probably Monday. Probably. I was looking at the acclimation. Yeah, I was looking at the acclimation period. I think you're allowed Monday. Doesn't mean you have to, but and Nick we'll probably ask Nick once Nick is talking. I
Sunday,
believe
Saturday. No, Monday.
Oh, wait, Monday. Yeah.
So tomorrow, Saturday's Kellen Moore. Saturday, 9:40 practice at 10.
Yeah. So early next week, we'll say. You'll probably see the pads for the first time, and that'll be a big day because you get to see the physicality come back into it, and that's a big part for the Eagles' offensive line.
Yeah, no doubt.
Lane and Jordan tend to bully people, and Landon as well. If Landon's back by that point, and that really changes the complexion. The defense as a whole, though, I think, Kellen Moore's got a lot more certainty. I mean, the only surprise to me over the first 2 days is it seems like the tight end 2 job is Grant Calcaterras to lose. I didn't expect that. I expected that to be more of a competition. Defensively, Vic's trying to figure it out, and he was honest, linebacker, cornerback. Those are the competitive battles, and I think they're different. He's got a bunch of guys I think he knows can play a corner. It's just a matter of finding the best fits for the best positions. And we don't have Cooper DeJean yet as well.
Yeah.
Who's going to be in that mix as well.
Mm-hmm.
Linebacker, though, next to because Devin's been sort of the one constant. And then even Jeremiah Trotter Jr. got a couple reps before he cramped up first team reps. Ben Van Sumer's gotten them. Zach Bond, he keeps talking about. And then there's Nakobe Dean. When Vic kind of gave the backhanded slap to him, well, he's done it in college, but he's got to prove it at this level. A lot of people took that negative. Did you take that negative, Ed Kratz? I think Howie loves Nakobe.
Yeah, listen, I do too. I mean, it's just been bad luck with the injury last year, and that's going to be the key to his summer is can he be out there every single day? And, I asked Devin White yesterday about Nakobe, and he said they walked off the field together, and he said, hey, how do you feel? Because you look great. And Nakobe said, hey, I feel good. I feel comfortable. The more I get out here, the more comfortable I feel, the more fun I'm having. So to me, if he can stay on the field healthy, he'll probably be the starting linebacker next to Devin White, the off-ball linebacker. I think that middle linebacker job is White's. But I think that, we're seeing a lot of mixing and matching to see what, who can play, who can do what, how they can do it, because you never know during the course of a season, especially with Nakobe, if he'll be able to hold up for, the summer and then all 17 games and hopefully beyond if you're the Eagles in the playoffs. So, you have to find out who can do it. If Trotter can do it, or Ben Van Sumeren, or who was the linebacker that made that pass breakup yesterday? Went left by
Terrell Lewis.
Terrell Lewis. Yeah, I mean, he made a really nice splash play there with a pass breakup. Really went up high to get it. I don't know, good vertical jump, probably higher than all three of ours combined. So that was nice. So yeah, it's all about mixing and matching right now if you're Fangio, and that's why I say I think the offense is going to need to carry this team at least early on. They're going to have to put 4 touchdowns up, in that opener in Brazil against the Packers.
Oh, yeah, the Packers. It's going to be a tough game, that Packers game. Yeah.
It is. It really is. And, and listen, I don't think it's an easy schedule by any stretch. They only played 2 home games until November 3rd. Only 2 home games at the Link, I should say. That Brazil game is a home game, but it's not a home game.
No. Sao Paulo is not Philadelphia.
No, right. And we already talked about the betting situation and how it's it's going to be hard to find a bed that's going to hold Jordan Davis and Jordan Mailata and those bigger guys.
Mekhi Becton, you got to get involved.
Yeah, Mekhi Becton. So, yeah, but that's not a home game. So, listen, I think the offense is going to have to really kind of hit the ground running because it's going to take this defense, I think, a little bit of time to figure it out. But I think it's exciting. The players, some of these players they have. I mean, we talk about the pads. I can't wait to see Carter and Davis going against the interior of that Eagles offensive line. That'll be some fun battles to watch. And then when they do the one-on-one drills, when they match up, the Stoutland takes the lineman over to the other, field far, far away, and he puts them through the one-on-one drills. They're always fun to watch. So, we got a little taste here the first 2 days, but it's about to get even better as we go on here this week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Ed, let's talk about the cornerback position. It was one of the things that was probably talked about the most in the offseason, who's going to play where and the depth and all those things. What have you seen so far? They kind of have been rotating a lot, but what stood out to you at the cornerback position through the first 2 days of camp?
Yeah, Keely Ringo has been, I thought, a little bit more average than I'd like to see. I don't think he has kind of built off a very good spring. I'd like to see him pick it up. Isaiah Rodgers, I don't think we'll really know until the pads come on. The big knock on him was tackling. He's not the best tackler when he was in Indianapolis. He's going to have to do it here. So to me, Quinyon Mitchell's been kind of used, in different positions. He's been in the slot. He's been outside. If I was handicapping it right now, after 2 days of camp, I would say probably Quinyon Mitchell. They're going to.
There we go. I'm team Q as well.
Yeah,
he throws everything at that guy. I mean, he's playing all 3 positions. He played dime linebacker in the spring, and he doesn't look overwhelmed at all. At all.
Yeah, and
really
Fangio,
like he's a smart player. Just from what I've heard from you guys and reading the other beat reporters, seems like Quinyon's really a smart football player.
Yeah, I agree, and Fangio spoke pretty highly of him yesterday. So why not? I mean, the guy was the 22nd pick overall in the draft, the first cornerback I think off the board. Yeah, let's get him out there. Let's see what he can do, and I think we'll see that in the preseason. I was asked an interesting question about the preseason games because the Eagles only have one open practice, one joint practice this year, where in the past they've had 4 most years. Will we see more starters play in that first preseason game against the Ravens? And I think that's a good question. Because they have so few joint practices, I think we could. And I think we'll see Quinyon out there playing a lot.
You know what I don't like about that game, though, Ed, is that they're playing the Ravens in the ear. So it's not like it's a random opponent. Not that matters that much, but they might try and keep things even closer to the vest versus that team who they're going to see later in the year versus if you just played another AFC team that you weren't going to see. So I don't know. I'm hoping they get their guys out there, but I feel like they're not.
Yeah, it's funny because when they had the joint practices with the Jets up in North Jersey, with the Jets, but the Jets have a nice facility, by the way. I love that tree at the Jets practice fields. But they played the Jets that year, I believe, in the regular season, but it was late in the regular season, and Nick made a big deal of, it's not that big of a deal because it's so late. Things will have changed. With the Ravens, I think they play them late. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right, yeah.
But the difference is the Ravens are good. They don't want to, and they know they're going to be good. So,
well, you don't have to show anything. You can play your guys. You can
but
play
in practice. I meant that's why they didn't have the joint practices. I think that's the reason, because typically they have a history of joint practices with the Ravens. It would have been a perfect opportunity to do it again against a very good team, but they're playing them. I think that's why they didn't want to do it. But that has more to do with the Ravens being good. That's my conspiracy theory anyway. But one guy we don't talk about, I don't think I've mentioned him yet, Ed, and this is the first time I'm going to mention him. And nobody believes in him except the Eagles. I'm exaggerating because I believe in him. Reed Blankenship. I mean, that guy, I remember last year, we thought we were going to see this huge competition at safety, and we did, but it was opposite Reed Blankenship. He took every first-team rep. He secured that job. Everybody rotated around him. And this year, same thing. Now you have Chauncey as well, and both of those guys have been static as starters and will be starters. Why do people want Eddie Jackson, who signed with the Ravens finally? They still want Justin Simmons because he won't make a decision. Why does nobody believe in Reed Blankenship except the Philadelphia Eagles? Ed Crowder.
Well, I'm not sure that nobody believes in Reed Blankenship. I think people do. I just think people don't believe in the Eagles' depth at safety. I mean, they are really, really thin at safety. Especially
you're not bringing in Justin Simmons to be a backup.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you could put Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the slot. I listen. The more good players you have on your roster, the better you're going to be. I mean, you can sort out the starting stuff or the backup stuff, however you want to do it. But I'm not opposed to bringing in more depth, and Justin Simmons is the best one out there. And then you sort it out on the field. But you can never have too many good players. But Reed is certainly one of them. I mean, I'm surprised that he wasn't among the first 2 waves of players that the Eagles make available for interviews after practice. You can tell a lot by, who is made available in the interviews. They come out day 1 with the heavy hitters, Barkley, Hurts, Lane Johnson, Darius Slay. And then day 2 is, the second wave of players. We had Goddard and, Cam Jurgens, Bryce Huff.
Josh, yeah, CBS.
Terrible. Bryce up, but Reed wasn't among that group is my point. And I'm surprised at that. I bet you he'll talk on Saturday because, he's a very valuable member of the team. There's no doubt. I mean, he's the guy he led the team in tackles and interceptions last year. I don't think anybody's discounting that or nobody loves Reed Blankenship. I just think when you look at the depth, man, their second team safeties were James Bradbury, who's never done it.
We got to talk about Bradbury
and Tristan McCollum. They were your 2 second-team safeties.
Well, and obviously Sidney's going to be back at some point, and he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the third safety.
Whenever that happens, who knows? I mean,
it's going to be 9 months. He's 23. Already looks like he can play. I mean, you've seen Sidney Brown. He's a tremendous athlete.
I saw him playing in a celebrity softball game in Allentown, and Devontae Smith
looks like he's 110%. But
he's taking bat. He's swinging the bat. He's running the bases. He looked good.
But that injury is an injury that needs a certain time to heal, and they're going to probably be cautious and go the full 9 months. So he'll be back early in the season. So I do think it's, the depth isn't great. I'm with you. Then you go down to Tristan McCullum. But James Bradberry, Vic was honest about him as well when I asked him about Bradberry, and he said, and he'll play some cornerback too. Is Howie risking something by keeping Bradberry around, by keep kicking this can? Obviously, he wants something for him.
Yeah.
But if Vic keeps seeing this guy and says he can help me, he's going to do what he wants to do. Could that create some kind of conflict?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the question is Bradberry happy? It would be nice if he would talk to us, and we all talk about his accountability and his, he's stand up.
Yeah, guy. I think he would talk to us.
Yeah. It would be nice if we got him on Saturday to find out, what he's thinking about this situation. But right now he has a role. He's a backup safety and a backup cornerback. Now, could that come at the expense of keeping, I don't know, an Eli Ricks, or, we've seen Eli Ricks take a lot of reps too. So I don't think it'll be Ricks. And then McPherson's good on special teams, Josh Jobe. But listen, if you're going to have to part with somebody to keep a Bradberry, I don't think the Eagles would do that. But right now, we're not even in August. I think Bradberry has a role that the Eagles are using. So, we'll see, what happens from here. But I think definitely Howie wants to trade him. He doesn't want to just cut him and let the vultures, swarm over him and take him. He wants to get something.
Yeah. And you're seeing what's happening with some cornerbacks around the league. I mean, you never want to see injuries in training camp, but it's an inevitable part of it.
Yeah,
and maybe Howie factored that in and was right. And, you're already seeing some teams that might need a cornerback. Maybe they'll come in, and try and pick James Bradberry up. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. But right now I think he has a role, and with this thin safety group, he's getting a lot of reps. So, and James is a smart guy, he might be.
Does he look all right? Because Vic that's the one other thing. I was laughing at Vic Fangio with what he said. I'm like, boy, Howie's up here trying to parade this guy and increase his value. And Vic Fangio's like, oh, yeah, he's probably not going to be a good safety.
Yeah. Well, I think he set he set a more realistic expectations that
you're right. He did.
It's hard to do. And, if Bradberry can do it, everybody will love the fact that he can. But if he doesn't,
I asked him that Bradberry guy, and I kind of laughed at Vic shutting me down, because I was thinking, when I asked the question, I'm thinking about like Hall of Fame players. I'm thinking like Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson did it, and Ronnie Lott was a corner before he turned into a safety.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about those guys, and Vic was like, well, yeah. Not a lot of them are successful, and he's 100% right.
Yeah. Well, that's what Sirianni said when he said in the spring, like, hey, a lot of guys have done it. Rod Woodson's done it.
Yeah.
Or Charles Woodson.
Yeah. And those are Hall of Famers. So.
Yeah. Bradberry's not a Hall of Famer.
No,
I mean, come on. But, and he's been in the league. I think those guys transitioned maybe earlier in their careers. I mean, this is Bradberry's
Well, they were pretty late. But Lott was early. Was early. And they were later, and they kind of saved they kind of extended their careers because they were getting a little bit long in the tooth to play corner. And that's, the hope, I guess, with Bradberry. But
it was cool to hear Fangio say how hard that transition is, because remember the guys that have come through that, everybody thinks, oh, Rasul Douglas, they should move him to safety. Like it's easy. Or, who was another guy? Keely Ringo is a guy. Wait, put him at safety. I mean, it's not that easy.
They see somebody who's 6'2" and 205. Hey, put him at safety.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. And it was good to hear Fangio kind of set the expectation on how hard that transition
Probably
is.
not good for Howie, though. Yeah. Tone it down. Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
He's a great center fielder.
Vic's got a blank check, man. He can. Yeah. He's got the ultimate job security for any coach in the league, probably.
Yeah, he's and he's going to do what he wants, and that's a good thing.
Yes,
like Ed Kratz at KratzE on X.com. Make sure you read them. SI.com/NFL/Eagles. Been doing a great job over there. You can even read me while you're reading Ed and get excited by that. So we got a ton of coverage up, ton of stories going up every day. Ed's got his overreactions. I got my observations each day when we're done practice. So all that good stuff there. And the best thing is it's free. It seems like what are we? Dave and us. Dave, I think NBC Sports Philadelphia is still free. We're free.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it might be the only two that are free content out there. So yeah, people should be taking advantage of that, no doubt.
Yeah, take advantage.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jacob Sports, Ed Kratz. Jacob Sports, free for the people. That's
right, man. Yeah, working hard for free for the people, man.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, thanks for joining the show, man. Great context you brought. It's always good to talk to you guys when you guys are down there. You guys are the few people that get to watch it up close and personal. So great takeaways from you, Ed. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Great job on all the coverage. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Ed. Ed Kratz joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Ed. I love talking to Ed. I love reading Ed's work. He always brings a good dynamic to the show, Johnny Mac. You guys are a good tandem, you and Ed Kratz. Good. You guys have a good little partnership there at SI. So it's always good to get Ed Kratz here. Johnny Mac, we'll take one more quick time out, and then we'll come back and we'll close out this week, man. First week of training camp is already in the books. Went by quick, so stay tuned, everybody. We'll come back and wrap up this Friday edition of Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the Jacob Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your greenhouse? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. Wrapping up a Friday edition, wrapping up the week here on Birds 365. We'll be back again live Monday morning in our regular time slot on Monday. Don't know how much of John will have on that show because he has duties down at the NovaCare, but we will talk to John briefly in the morning before he gets out of here. John, any final thoughts from you on the first week? The first week is officially in the books. It's going to go by very quick, I can already tell. But any final thoughts from you that we may not have touched on based on the first week you saw at training camp?
Yeah, I think not a lot of surprises, not a lot of splash plays, but the offense has been very crisp. Defense kind of finding its way as they churn through a couple of positions. I think, obviously getting the pads on is going to be a big day, whether that's Monday or Tuesday. I think then it starts to really sink in. I think the strength of the Eagles defense remains the defensive line. I think Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, conditioning's been a big part of it. Probably I've undersold that a little bit. The Eagles are very focused on being better conditioned, not only with those two players, but the team as a whole.
Able to see anything yet from them in that front? Like, have you been able to tell whether they are in better condition? Probably not yet, right?
Well, no, but you can tell they're trying to get in better condition.
Right, okay.
Yesterday, they had a bunch of sessions where everybody was forced to run essentially down to the opposite end zone before leaving the field. So they're doing those sort of little things to make sure the conditioning is as best as it can possibly be. It was interesting because I remember talking about the 2022 season, Xander, the Super Bowl season, and I was amazed that it seemed that the Eagles were better conditioned than almost everybody else because they didn't practice like everybody else. And I was kind of like, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't know what they're doing. And last year they weren't. So, I don't know if it was just, they were so good or whatever, but they certainly looked better conditioned in 2022 than they did last year. And they're making corrections to try to get that better or try to get it as best as they possibly can. So that's been a big part of the 2 days. And, but yeah, that's how it works in training camp. You're practicing against each other, right? So when the offense is doing well, that means the defense is not doing as well. And back in the spring, when the defense was doing well, it means the offense was not doing as well. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, good stuff, though. It really seems like they had a good first week of camp. I know it's not, you can't take too much of it. I don't want to overreact one way or the other. But, I mean, look, there's going to be headlines out of everything the Eagles do. They're smart enough to know that. And I think overall it was positive reaction. I think they handled the 7-week period where everybody was like, oh, and Nick and Jalen and all. I thought they squashed that very effectively, very quickly. I thought that was good by both of them, both Nick and Jalen. And I thought they handled everything pretty well. So I think overall a positive first week of training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. We will see how it continues to develop, but good stuff. So thanks everybody, guys. John, the viewers have just been amazing this week, by the way. I know you've been working hard down at NovaCare, haven't been able to see it all, but I mean, live all day yesterday from the morning to the night, and they were there active, liking, sharing, comment, subscribe, super chats. We had our 2 biggest viewed days in a long time. So we appreciate you guys so much. You guys make the channel and we can't do it without you guys. So thank you so much for your likes, for your comments, for all your contributions to the network. Like I said, you're a big part of it as well. So we can't do it without you guys. Thank you guys for that. Johnny Mac, thank you for the work this week. I know you're working very hard going down there early in the morning and staying late and doing shows till 8 p.m. So thank you for the work this week. I thought it was a very good, effective week, and I'm excited to do it all again next week and this weekend. We'll do a little show on Saturday for you guys after the practice as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in. J-Mac, thank you, brother. We'll catch you on Monday or I guess tomorrow. Right, brother?
Yeah, everybody have a good weekend. But remember, Saturday practice. So you got to pay attention to the Eagles on Saturday. At least Sunday, they'll be off. But yeah, Kellen Moore tomorrow. So get excited for that.
Good stuff. We'll see what Kellen Moore has to say tomorrow. Maybe he'll make some headlines like Vic Fangio did. We'll see, and we'll talk about it right here on Jacob Sports. So thank you, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow and later on today for the National Football Show with Dan Cilio. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Jacob Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.